Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. I hope you enjoy. Story number 1. What is the first sign of civilization? Written by Random 3X.
What is the first sign of civilization?
Grads asked the table that was veritable menagerie of species from across the Alliance.
Well, it is obvious, is it not?
Agro said, pushing his glasses along his beak with his feathered hand.
It is clearly the mass negation hyperdrive,
he declared with such conviction that some of the others at the table nodded in agreement.
Ah!
Spat one of the heavy-muscled Histron.
Problems with my analysis, Commander Bone Splitter?
The Growl asked, arching a brow.
You set the bar too high, pal.
The commander spat back, not giving any ground.
We have encountered species which had not developed such machines, yet they were what we would still call a civilization.
Yes, I suppose so, Pal conceded. Then pray tell, what do you consider the first sign, then?
It should be clear nuclear power.
Bone Splitter clenched his fist for emphasis.
Nuclear power?
A diminutive mouse-like sect repeated. Confused. Sorry, sir.
Do you mean weapons or usage in energy?
He asked in a voice that seemed liable to squeak if not controlled. Well,
yes.
Bone Splitter clenched his fist again, and he rose to further emphasize his point.
Nuclear power, both used for destruction and energy, is the first sign of civilization.
His booming voice cowed a few of the attendees into nodding. Whether through agreement or fear, only they could say.
Don't you agree, little one?
The commander gestured to the sec.
Respectfully, sir, I must throw your own statement back at you.
The sec this time actually squeaking.
As you pointed out to the chief science official over there, we have encountered civilizations which did not have such access to mass negation hyperdrives. We have also encountered civilizations that did not use nuclear energy. They all utilized either hydrocarbons or natural forces.
The sec finished.
That is true.
Bone Splitter held his hand to his chin in thought as he ruminated on the idea.
Well, I'm stumped. What about you, little one?
Me, sir?
The sec squeaked in shock. The commander just nodded in response.
It is, in this humble one's opinion, writing is the first sign of civilization. While many barely sentient creatures will use tools and even make some, writing is, in this one's opinion, the first sign of civilization.
There were murmurings of agreement. Even the commander and the chief science officer both nodded in agreement. The only head not bobbing was the human at the table.
Do you disagree, sir, human?
Bell asked. In part, I suppose. The human bobbed his head while shrugging his shoulders.
Then, what do you believe is the first sign of civilization?
Pal asked pointedly, following his species' natural tendency to put up or shut up. Okay, I will start this by saying that this isn't my idea, but one I do agree with. The human paused and looked around the wrapped table. A healed femur, he said finally. A silence fell on the table at what they felt was an anticlimactic answer.
A healed femur?
Pal repeated.
I understand humans are only just advancing, but to state that such a mundane thing is...
Pal gave a broad gesture as if looking to the others for the words to express himself.
A bit of a simplistic letdown,
Bone Splitter finally filled in.
Why do you think a healed femur?
The sec asked. Because it takes weeks for a femur to heal, the human answered before looking around at the expectant gazes. With a sigh, the human cleared his throat and began again. As I said, it takes weeks to heal a femur, weeks where the injured person can't do anything. In an uncivilized world, they would be left for dead, maybe even killed and eaten, depending. But civilization begins when you help someone through trouble, whether injury, illness, or anything else. The moment you can put to the care of others above the care for yourself is where civilization is born, the human finished. The table looked on in surprise. The answer was an interesting idea. The thought that caring for others, even as a hardship, was something that they would never have thought to list. End of story. Story number 2. Enemy Ace, written by Echoing Cascade. Terry, as the aliens had taken to call himself when he infiltrated the humans, was making his way to present his findings to the Sovereign's court. His people, the Tromak, had always been considered the most warlike amongst all known species. That is until the probe from the Verat had found the impossible: sentient Deathworlders. Worse, sentient Deathworlders with space-faring technology. The Verat had gathered their courage and, after informing the galactic community at large, began first contact procedures. As it turned out, humans were friendly and mostly peaceful. They were currently getting ready to begin negotiations for trade routes. But the Tromak did not like what they saw. The humans' technology was primitive but effective, and their numbers great enough to make up for any shortcomings their ships may have. If negotiations failed, they needed to be ready for war. Terry had been sent to gather records of their combat tactics, historical battles, and above all, the average skill of their combat pilots, dogfighting being Tromak's area of expertise. Terry was in a small room surrounded by the top military leaders of his race, all eagerly awaiting his findings. Terry. First of all, I have a video to show you. The video was of a single fighter ship, a Pegasus Interceptor class, as it flew towards 50 ships of similar design. The fighter we see here is piloted by a VR set by a human. The controls and ship capabilities are a perfect recreation of the real-life analog, and the same goes for the AI-controlled enemy ships. Terry resumed the video. The fighter dodged incoming fire by centimeters, retaliating all the while, and in a handful of minutes had destroyed 40 of the enemy vessels. One of the general present were obviously impressed.
That is one ace of a pilot. I would love to duel him.
The Tromak grinned from ear to ear. The grin faded fairly quickly, however. The combat resumed, but this time the fighter ship was taking a few shots. The shields were slowly getting depleted, but that wasn't the only surprise.
Are the enemy vessels getting faster?
Terry nodded and paused the video. Correct. This particular simulation is programmed so once 40 ships are destroyed, the remaining ships get faster and stronger, until the very last one has its speed and overall power tripled. As the video restarted, it became obvious that the pilot was struggling now. He was down to 2 enemies on his 6 who he couldn't shake, and his shields was nearly gone. Then he did something unexpected. He dove into the ground and began to weave around buildings at maximum speed. The enemy ships followed him, shooting all the while. Eventually his plan became clear as they shot buildings in front of him in such a fashion as to provide both cover and indirect damage via debris. By the time his shields were completely gone, he had managed to force his pursuers to self-destruct. The military leaders present were speechless. In fact, a few of them weren't able to follow the action once only 2 enemy ships remained.
Please tell me that this isn't the average skill level of a human combat pilot.
Oh, no, not at all. The combined officers present let out a sigh of relief. This had to be a training session of the best humanity had to offer. Probably some flight instructor, a veteran of hundreds of battles. This isn't a combat pilot. This is a recording of a youngling participating in an amateur competition. Combat pilots are not allowed to join. They're just too good. This revelation was met with stunned silence. I would now like to present you with my findings. Terry cleared his throat. Please, make sure the negotiations don't fail. End of story. Story number 3. Yeah, sure, and I shit thermite. Be serious. So, maybe he'd gone a little overboard after work that day. He'd admit that. Drinking the sad away was the most mature way to handle things. But when you got a letter from your dad saying, well, say that, you know, maybe it was okay to have a beer or 2, in theory. In practice, that means that 2 beers deep Earl had somehow have enough willpower to say, no, I don't want to become a 3 beers deep Earl. And then 3 beers deep Earl's gotta say no to 4 beers deep Earl. And it's just a bit of a shit show from there. Pardon the French. At least he wasn't on the clock. The worst thing that should have happened to him was waking up tomorrow with a fat-ass headache and upset friends. Instead, he was in a hospital, surrounded by men with guns, osmotically absorbing the most surreal conversation of his life. We heard that humans had remarkable healing abilities, but this is just incredible. Anyone else here would be dead. He's just showing some signs of esophageal irritation. We got any idea of the culprit? We're looking into the security footage, but the culprit must be some kind of ghost. We've gone over some security footage at least 20 times. Nobody can spot a thing. Earl couldn't help. He broke in.
What are you talking about?
The detective and the doctor jumped at the sound of his voice. What the shit? The doc's hands went over the detective's mouth, cutting off the oath just a hair too late. The duo looked at each other before the detective gestured to the doctor to go first. He did. I don't have very much experience with humans, so we thought that it would be a couple days at least before you woke up. How are you feeling?
Earl coughed a few times, throats raw, heads pounding, and would kill for anything fried in grease, sir. Pretty standard hangover.
The detective cut in. Except for the part where someone poisoned you.
Earl shrugged his shoulders. Must not have been good poison. The lawman didn't laugh.
Hydrochloric acid mixed with potassium salts. You can bet your pink ass that it's good poison. Anyone else here would be dying from a hole in their gut. You've been making enemies in the station colony, boy.
Earl's smart aleck remark froze in his one semester of Biology 101, clawed its way to the front of his brain.
Oh.
The detective clicked his pen, ready to start taking notes, even as Earl waved him off. No crime here, Doc. My stomach makes that stuff naturally. The doctor blinked, even as the detective rolled his eyes.
Yeah, and I shit thermite. Be serious, pal. There's someone here out to get you.
Earl held his gaze, and after a few moments the detective's annoyed face transformed into numb confusion.
Hot damn! You're not joking. You're telling me that you can spew concentrated acid on a whim.
The question hit a little close to him, and Earl felt his ears burn. Not on a whim, more like, after 6 or 7 beers. The doctor grabbed the pad and began filling out forms of his own. Yeah, we're gonna have to make sure that you don't do that again. We can't just go around creating chemical waste every time you get sad. I'm going to have to get you into contact with IT, set up some kind of cutoff point with the cantina for you. Someone down the hall must have sanitized something, because the odor of strong alcohol wafted into the room. It was all Earl could do to not empty his stomach a second time. That's fair. End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Barkey, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.